Free to smoke too. I will be. Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens. Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle episode 285, 286. Holy cow, I'm messing it all up. Have a super special guest for us tonight, Ngaio. You have seen him
Ngaio,
around the cannabis community.
Oh, go ahead.
The cannabis community, the cannabis circuit, the comedy circuit. There we go. Netflix is
Comedy
cooking on
circuit.
high. They're both one and the same, aren't they? A cannabis comedian, kind of.
Other words that start with E could describe me as well. So,
thank you so much for coming on tonight. You want to tell us where we can find you on social media?
Sacramento, just ask around. They know where I am. You can also go to I have a YouTube channel, Ngaio 420. That's my handle for like everything, for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. Ngaio, Ngaio was his name. And I'm doing a comedy show. Today is the second, 18 days from now, on January 20th, online at nowherecomedyclub.com. You can buy tickets for the 12420 Comedy Extravaganza inauguration special, and Margaret Cho will be there, and Daniel Rugg Webb will be there, and Atsuko Okasaka will be there, and I'll be there, and Tavi and Drea Myers will also be there. It's going to be a good time. You don't have to be a weed smoker to enjoy the show, but it doesn't hurt.
Cannabis makes everything better, doesn't it?
Cannabis anyway. Is the umami flavor of life. It just kicks everything up a notch. It's the soy sauce. It's the ketchup of doing shit. It's the ranch dressing of doing shit, for sure.
So I guess, when did cannabis enter your life? When was the first time you started with cannabis?
I mean, my dad was a stoner for a long time before he gave it all up. My mom smoked a little weed. I grew up in San Francisco, so cannabis is kind of baked into the, pardon the pun, baked into the culture there, right? A lot of hippies, a lot of cats coming down from Humboldt. Weed has been de facto mostly legal in California since the 90s. So just like that, I started smoking in college, really. So that would have been 1986 or so. And then I got into activism shortly after that. And, and now I grow a little bit in the garage or the backyard, really. I don't really have a garage. This is my homegrown. Did you see it? Ooh, look at that. Fancy. Smells like pine trees. Makes you clean the house after a small panic attack. It's a mystery sativa. I'm not sure what strain it is, but it works pretty well for me.
Come on.
And I've been a comedian almost as long as I've been a stoner, so they kind of just go hand in hand. And I wrote a lot of jokes about weed, and people were like, "You should just be a weed comic." And I was like, "Well, I'll just be a comic." But then weed started getting more popular, so I became more of a weed comic. And the same guys who didn't used to book me because I talked about weed a lot, now they're calling me all the time. So I just raised my price, to quote Beyonce.
It sounds like a wise plan. Be honest with you, it sounds like a wise plan.
Sometimes the long game pays off.
Boy, you come right on bringing that unicorn strain that I'm kind of looking for. The pines are the pines are the terp profile that I'm kind of chasing right now. I love that pine.
Terp profile are you chasing?
The pine, alpha pinene.
The pine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like old school train wreck, that Jack Herer strain smells a lot like pine trees, that pinene terpene. Who else has that smell? The hazes, like the lemon haze, the northern lights, they often have that pinene smell. Hazes have that pinene smell. I generally associate a pinene smell with making me want to clean the house. I don't know if it's because it smells like pine sol or what, but if I smell pine, I know that if I smoke that, I should get up and do something, or I could just sit still and have a small panic attack. But it's probably better if you get up and do stuff.
That's one of the reasons I'm looking for it myself, is it's very clearing. It clears the mind, makes me very active. And then if I double up on it, kind of get a little greedy, it tends to get me super laughy. So that's one of the reasons I'm chasing the pine.
What are some of your favorite terpenes or flavor profiles?
I like the gassy stuff,
Yeah.
pine, followed by the fruity profiles. Yeah. But gas and pines are up on the top. Skunk, if I could ever find it, but finding that old roadkill skunk is to
Man,
be
I just
continued.
smoked the last of my roadkill skunk. Somebody gave me some roadkill skunk like a year ago, and I nursed that bag for 8 months. It was really good. I think that runts has kind of a skunky smell to it, like a good runts. It's cushy, but it leans towards skunk.
Keep my eye out. We were talking about the runts the other day, and that's one that I haven't ran. And I'm a caregiver here in Michigan, so
Okay.
I kind of get locked into what's in my garden, and I don't
Yeah.
get to the dispensaries a
Now,
whole lot. Most of the time.
do you have an indoor or outdoor garden? Like, how's the growing season in Michigan? It seems like it would be short because you guys get those serious winters up there.
Oh yeah. Well, I do everything indoors myself. A lot of people have stepped outdoors this year. I mean, with pretty good success. Something that's a little indica down seems to do pretty well here in Michigan.
Sure. You're doing through dirt or hydroponics or aeroponics?
Well, I've went through the whole gamut of it all. I'm kind of in chunky cocoa and salts, but
That was my
I
nickname
have a
in college.
chunky cocoa.
Yeah, that's the nickname.
No way.
No. I was the chocolate mountain of joy for a few years early in my comedy career. Ngaio Beelan, please welcome the chocolate mountain of joy. Ngaio Beelan. I think I might bring that back a little bit, but no, they never called me chunky. Maybe they should have. It would have been very interesting if they had.
I am trying to work in the organics right now. Excuse me. I have some earth boxes going with the soil, and I have some amendments that I make kind of organic that make the cocoa water only organic type mix. So I've got a few different styles I'm kind of running right now. Do you mainly grow outdoors? Oh, 20 years.
Oh yeah, you got me beat. I mean, I like to grow weed, but I don't really it's a hobby. If you know what I mean. I just kind of throw some shit outside and hope it works. Try to keep it watered. I take the bugs off of it as best I can. And that's about it. I figure weed knows what to do. I mean, growing weed is easy. Growing good weed is a challenge. My weed came out pretty good this year. Mostly because I was home. I'm usually on the road a lot, so it doesn't get as much attention when I'm gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But this year it came out pretty good because I managed to look at it every couple of days. But it's different. Growing outdoor, you can be, if you're just growing for a hobby or for funsies, you can be a little more imprecise than if you're growing indoor, where you kind of have to give it a lot of attention and check on it almost every day and make sure all the chemicals are good. And if you get some sort of weird calcium deficiency or whatever it is, nutrient troubles or a disease, it can spread faster in an indoor garden than it does outdoors, at least to me.
I believe that as well. Well, I like what's one of the reasons I grow in tents. I have a lot of tents. I don't have any rooms. At one point, I was growing in rooms, but because of situations, I've kind of moved back into tents. And I prefer that because it's a microclimate. If something were like that to spin out of control, it's kind of contained into one zone.
You can set it up how you want. Yeah, I understand. I get it. Makes sense to me.
Helps keep it perpetual going too. That's kind of important to me.
You say you keep it perpetual?
Yeah, for sure. I pull some down every month. I have myself and 5 patients to care for. So I try to keep things.
So Michigan still has the old school, even though they have adult use or recreational cannabis now, they still have the old school medicinal rules, so you can grow for patients and grow for yourself if you're a patient.
Oh yes, sir. And I can add that actually to the count in a way. They can't be together, but I can still have my rec count. They just have to be in a separate area. They can't be mixed in with the
What's the plant limit in Michigan?
medical. Well, for a rec, it's 12 per house. For the medical side, it's 12 per patient.
Okay.
So
You guys get 12 in the house. We get 6 in California. I can't believe you get more than us. We're fucking California. But you know, we also have a very long growing season. So you can grow 6 plants here and they can all be 8 to 10 to 12 feet tall.
yeah,
If you have
you
enough
guys
space.
get that monsters outdoors too.
Man, have you been to some of the farms? That shit gets crazy.
I have yet to be out there to California. And hopefully, I've got some invites to come out there to some nice farms next year. Hopefully, things let up so I can get out there and check some of that out. Dream.
We'll go
really.
on a little tour. It'll be fun.
So it says Chronssour. Chronssour. Have you got
Chronssour.
to be that? What's that?
A Chronssour.
Chronssour.
Right.
So how do you get to be a Chronssour? Is that just from years of travel?
Smoke a lot of weed. Educate your palate. Right. Learn to recognize terpene profiles. Learn to recognize flavors. Learn to recognize strains. It's harder now. I think it was easier when there were maybe 5 or 6 different flavor profiles. It was like Trainwreck, Kush, Northern Lights, Diesel. You know, you could pick out the variants from there. But now it's like there's cake, there's green crack, there's wedding cake, there's cookies, there's, you were talking about how you like that gas flavor, right? That diesel flavor, but people are mixing it with fruit all the time now. So you get like that fruit gas. It's hard to tell your mango from your pineapple sometimes. So everybody just calls it tropical notes, which is great. I love that weed has become kind of fancy pants in that way. Like I definitely helped to push that and me and my friends, because we wouldn't just like sit around smoking weed. We would, smoke different flavors. You go to even before the High Times Cup. Well, I mean, maybe not before the High Times Cup, because that one's been going on like 40 something years. But before High Times Cup was, back then it was only just in Amsterdam. And so people would throw little tasting parties or you can't call it a Cannabis Cup because High Times will sue you, but I threw the Medical Cannabis Cup in LA. I threw one for 3 years. I've thrown some tasting parties out here in Sacramento, and I've been a judge for the High Times Cup and for the Emerald Cup and for a bunch of other different cannabis competitions, and it's great. And I'm trying. They were supposed to do it this year, but pandemic. But hopefully next year at the California State Fair, they will have a cannabis competition, and hopefully I'll get to be a judge.
It's always an honor to be a judge for one of them cups,
Yeah, I take it serious.
Do you take it serious?
Oh, I do. I get my magnifying glass and my notebook. Make sure my pipes are all clean, and I bring my coffee beans to clear the nose. You smell your coffee beans before you smell the weed to refresh your palate, and water and coffee and everything. It goes great.
I've never heard that about the coffee beans, about being able to like reset the palate. Really?
Yeah.
How does that work? How does it clear the palate?
So say you're smelling a strain of weed, right? You smell the weed and you're like, oh, that's pines and lemon, and I smell maybe a little bit of black pepper, and then you smell some coffee beans, and then you smell a different strain of weed. So that it gives your brain a chance to reset. So you don't have the thought of whatever you just smelled in your nose. You just have a little coffee and it's cleared out a little bit. So now you can start anew with no preconceived notions.
I have to keep that in mind if I am ever lucky enough to judge the flower category when it comes back around.
I'm sure you'll get it. I'll throw something in California this winter, and we'll try to get you out here.
I've been a judge here in Michigan twice, but never for flower. I've always been lucky enough to pull the concentrate category.
And, I don't know if I can be a judge for concentrate, because I would smoke one and then I'd just be done. I'd be like, oh yeah, that one's pretty good. I'll see you in a week. Although I do like the old school, like solventless cold water or the finger hash. I do like that hash. The dabs though, I'm a lightweight when it comes to dabs for sure.
Well, it was I drew the non-solventless this last round, and it was nice, you know. It was rosin, stuff like that. Some nice couple bubble has samples, mostly rosin though. And I took it pretty serious myself. One a day, clean piece. When I sat down, and then tried to, as far as the sample, I kind of sat down with a few people, and we'd take notes. I wouldn't let anybody say anything. We'd just pass it around. Like, don't say nothing. You next.
Don't say nothing. Just hit
It's
it.
like,
Shut up.
1, 2, 3. What'd you get? That kind of seemed to be.
I've had when you do the Emerald Cup, you have to smoke like 40 strains a day. It's something ridiculous. So I've definitely had people over just to sit around and talk while we smoke weed and stuff. And some people tap out after 5 or 6 strains. I'm like, hey man, we got to smoke a bunch more. You better have some coffee and level up or some shit. Or you can just, pass out on the couch. I got snacks.
So that would be pretty awesome. How many cups would you say you've kind of been a part of like that?
I've been working at the Emerald Cup for years and years. I think I judged 4, and I've judged 3 High Times Cups. And I was the MC at the High Times Cup once, and I judged a edibles competition in Barcelona one time. And I've thrown 3 cups myself in LA, so I wasn't a judge, but I got to pick the weed for the competition. So, and I've thrown a bunch of tasting parties. I don't know, so 100 or so.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's people who've done way more than me. If you talk to cats like Rick Cusick or Ed Rosenthal or some shit, those guys, man, they stay doing weed events. And I also travel around a lot. I get to smoke weed in a bunch of different countries, including the States. Although I've never been to Michigan since they've legalized the weed. That's on my list of shit to do in 2021 is go to Detroit and check out the scene.
You gotta get to Michigan. We like to think we're at least second. We're at least second here in the cannabis game.
And you're better than Oregon? Because to me, Oregon grows the second best weed in the country.
Oh, you need to get to Michigan. We grow some dank over here.
I can't wait for weed to be legal everywhere so we can throw the national, take the winners from each state and throw a Cannabis Cup.
You know what I've always kind of been proposing this last year is, like a terp cup, basically. Basically it wouldn't be not just a all-out strain. So it would be basically, like a lemon cup, a pine cup, something like that, where all them.
It's that's almost like a dog show.
Yeah, that way you could like nail down the best of the best.
Best Dalmatian, best German Shepherd, best Saint Bernard, best this and that, best toy dog, and then you do best in show. So you're saying like best train wreck variant, best Kush variant, best cookies variant, best lemon flavor, best tropical example, and then maybe you can have a competition where the best of the best, and then boom, best in show or best in dro.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Good one. For sure. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So when did edibles, the edible aspect come into play? When did you get a taste for cannabis and cooking?
In the 90s, I guess. I was watching a lot of cooking shows and getting into it, and the dispensaries were just starting to get popular and get big in San Francisco, and so there was a lot more access to cookies, and people were starting to push it. It wasn't just dump a bunch of weed into some brownie mix, right? Cats were like, well, you got to decarb the cannabis, and then you can infuse it into your olive oil, your butter, and then from there you can make all kind of crazy shit. I remember Tainted Chocolates, the late great Mickey Martin. He used to make great chocolate bars. I actually had a side hustle for a minute where I would make a cannabis-infused cornbread, which seemed to be very popular. It was good for cramps, is what I heard from the women. I don't know why, but they seem to agree. And so like that. And this was before we had,
dosages and whatnot. It was just either strong or not strong. So you had to be careful. Shit was an adventure every time. But now people can pick and choose, and I really appreciate that you could be like, well, I don't like to do more than 10 milligrams, or I need to do 100 milligrams, whatever.
So what has been your favorite edible to produce so far?
What's been I don't really produce edibles. I mean, to consume.
Okay, yeah, consume.
When I did cooking online,
I think it was Brandon made a French onion soup, which I thought was good. There was also a waffle on there or a pancake or some shit. I don't remember. I was stoned. That was also really, really good. And anything that Andrea Drummer cooks, I'm down to eat. She's not only is she a great cannabis chef, she's just a great fucking chef in general. Check her out. Andrea Drummer, look her up. She's amazing.
That's something that I hope comes more around myself, to where you can go and have a cannabis meal, sit down, have a nice little dinner, maybe a show.
They had to shut down the cafe in LA. They had one in LA, but they had to shut it down because of the pandemic. Hopefully it'll open
back up this fall or whenever we're through this ridiculousness. That would be great.
I mean, we've got a couple in, Michigan but not comedy clubs like that, where, but we have a few social clubs.
Yeah.
And that's something we need more of.
The social club is the way to go.
They're one of my favorite cannabis social clubs in Portland just shut down. Spain is all social clubs. All the dispensaries are social clubs. So it's not really just a place to go and buy cannabis, but you can sit, you can chop it up, you can play pool. Everybody's got their own vibe. It's like having a local pub that you can visit and smoke and chill, which I think is great.
That's the way it should be.
That is the way it should be.
You're correct. That's the way it should be. I don't know why we don't do it like that. Well, I do know why. Propaganda and racism. But we should really change that game around. We should do something different.
It would be nice to, if anything, if you were going to go in and you were a little negligent to what you were buying, to be able to buy like a gram, go sit down. I mean, something you were on the fence about. I don't know if this is going to be good for me. I'll take a gram and go sit down in the lobby and smoke it, and then come back and be like, that was great. I'll take an ounce of that. Yeah, please and thank you.
That's how it used to be in the early days of the dispensaries in California. You could smoke on site, right? Because they weren't just cannabis
dispensaries. They were, they had peer-to-peer counseling. They had free massage programs. They had all kind of different community service programs that were paid for by the money generated by the dispensaries, right? So it wasn't just, I think one of the things we forget sometimes about cannabis when we talk about medical cannabis is part of the medicine is that cannabis is a social drug. So you smoke weed and you get to hang out with people who are also high and maybe open to vibrations, and you can chop it up, you can have conversations, you can giggle, you can exchange knowledge, you can exchange vibes. And I think that's something that we've gotten away from in this dispensary push, where it's just, it's just a drug deal. You just come in and buy your drugs and then you leave. And I think if you go back to the old school, when you would go to the weed man's house, and people joke about it being a drag and whatnot, but it's also kind of fun. You go to the weed man's house, you sit around, you chop it up for a little bit, right? So it's not just buying weed, if there's a social aspect to it. And sometimes you got to hunt around to find a weed man whose vibe and whose house you like and whose prices were good and who had a good selection. Things are changed, but I think we're coming back around. And as people see that cannabis isn't a big deal, smoking a joint is no different than going and having a drink or two after work, we'll get more of these clubs, and we'll get more of this openness and more opportunities for people to be social in a slightly more public setting than just sitting at home smoking weed. One would hope.
Yeah, it's great that people don't have to hide. Yeah, I don't know how many other of my friends that that kind of outed themselves on that in particular couch like that. Be hanging out with your guy on Friday, You'd hear knock on the door, you'd jump up, let somebody in, you'd be like, oh, this is, you'd be like, I know that guy. And we got the same guy.
Right,
That's fucking
right. Well, sometimes
hilarious.
you make a new friend because somebody else comes over. You're like, oh yeah, I've seen you at a couple of bars or whatnot, and we got the same guy. So now we have a chance to chop it up in a neutral ground, see where our heads are at. Maybe we become homies. Maybe we exchange numbers. Maybe we split a bag every once in a while. You know, and that's just nice. That's nice how it goes.
I kind of miss the outlaw aspect of it a little bit, like that.
I don't feel nearly as dangerous as I used to feel. Right? You know, if everybody knew you had weed in your pocket, oh, that guy, he's an outlaw, man. He's just flouting the law. He's a scofflaw, right? It was like a speakeasy sort of vibe. But now I'm a square, right? Oh, that guy smells like weed. Maybe he works at the club or whatever. Huh? Good day to you, sir. Good day, sir. So I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna take up MMA fighting or something to start feeling dangerous again. That's funny to me.
So how much would you say that cannabis influences your comedy? How much does it weigh in on the comedy?
A lot. I mean, I talk about weed a lot. And also, what do they say? Write drunk, edit sober. It's kind of the same way. I kind of get high and think of jokes, wander around and think of jokes, and then try to figure out if they're good or not. You know, it's an odd question to ask somebody though, right? Because I mean, I definitely think of jokes sober too. So I'm not just stoned all the time and creating, but I think I have kind of a not the stereotypical, but perhaps the prototypical stoner mindset, right? And so that definitely, my mindset definitely informs what I write or what I create, right? But it's not necessarily because I'm stoned all the time, but it doesn't hurt. It's the lens, the stoner lens through which everything is focused.
There's nothing wrong with being medicated all the time, that's for sure. You know,
Nothing wrong with
it's
it at all.
actually the way the world it goes. It's funny that you know, people to even hear the lazy stoner, you know,
It's not even true.
stereotype.
Also,
It's not. It's
I think we'd
so
be a
far
much better
from it.
country if our politicians were stoned instead of drunk all the time.
I don't think people realize how much shit gets done on safety meetings. You know, the roads that get built, the high rises, the houses. There's a
Well,
lot of
listen,
things that
don't
get
get
done
stoned
on
and do brain
cannabis.
surgery or get stoned and build my house unless you're really good at it. But you know, getting stoned and coming up with new songs or new jokes or putting together shows or producing things, I'm all for it. It makes sense for everybody.
You'd be surprised how many houses get, you know, built.
I wouldn't. My
People,
dad
I
was
don't
a
even
travel
know if it's.
contractor. He would get high every morning, so I wouldn't be surprised about how many houses were built by stoners. What's the whose joke is it? He says becoming a weed head turns you into a carpenter. Right? Because all of a sudden you got to build a closet. You got to put this all shit together. Right. So that's how it is. Hey, man, thanks for having me over, bro.
Thank you for being on, man. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Ngaio on all the social medias. Ngaio 420, or just put Ngaio into your Google. I'm the third most popular Ngaio on the planet, and I'll show up. There's pictures. And January 20th at the nowherecomedyclub.com. Buy your tickets now. Margaret Show and me. It's going to be a great time. All right. I appreciate you, man. Take care.
Take care. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
What a great guy. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this. You guys know the deal. Do something nice for somebody. Brandon Max of Kindness. This was a shorty, but I'll be back in a few. So thanks for everybody for tuning in for this very quick episode, but very worth it. Ngaio, what a super great guy. Thank you for taking the time to hang out. I'll see you guys in a few in the rabbit.